All right. Another week of Arsenal football brings us heartache and hope. Welcome to the latest edition of the Daily Gooner pod here on YouTube and all across social media. Joining you from the United States, I'm Raphael. Joining me again, as usual, my regular cohort, Sam. Welcome, Sam.
Hello, mate. Hope everything's well.
It is, aside from Sunday's result, what we'll get to in a moment. And Ryan. Ryan, welcome back.
Good to be back, as usual.
All right, so we started the themes heartache and hope. We talked about the heartache. Let's go to the Chelsea match. Some hope that we Arsenal would produce a better result after face planting in the season opener at Brentford, opening at the Emirates against the European champs. It seems even in the wind up to the match, Ryan, some bad news coming out. White is out with COVID. We seemed wanting to have a stronger lineup, and it didn't happen. It just didn't happen.
No, we've just been severely unlucky in recent weeks, just with injuries, COVID, visa issues with Odegaard, and it's been a bit shambolic, really. It just goes to show how weak our depth is, really, because we looked a shell of any sort of team.
And Sam, let's talk about. I mean, we can talk about the breakdowns and the goals. I think more distressing, certainly, is for me as an Arsenal fan, expecting some semblance of flowing football. They seem very predictable. Still don't have a goal. Everything goes down the left. I mean, there were times that I was watching the match. It seemed like you can just put a line right down the center of the pitch, and all the Arsenal players, the forward players, save Cedric, are on the left side of the pitch. They're really easy to defend right now, aren't they?
Oh, massively. And I think that's partly to do with not having an adequate right back to balance out the attacks. Because if you think about it, Chambers and Cedric aren't exactly the quickest players and getting up and down the pitch. They haven't got the engine for it. So you're always going to go down to Kieran Tierney because the guy's an absolute animal when his body lets him. Um, and I think also it really strikes me that our play is predictable because we don't have any variation in the striking area. We haven't got somebody that can hold that ball up properly, playing back with their back to goal, linking in, bringing the midfield in, shielding it, popping it off to the wings, having quick transitions in that aspect from top down. But I think we've with with our midfield as well that we had. The only person that was looking forward was Sambi Lakonga. Um, Shaka, I know he's just signed his extension, but for me personally, it's not worth the paper it's written on right now.
All right, and that's a topic we'll bring up, very shortly. Is have they really gained in the midfield? And will having Thomas Partey enough to offset, this kind of predictability that you pointed out, Sam. Ryan, let's come back to it. Let's stay with the attack. Um, Lack of possibilities, lack of options in the box. This time, this match, uh, obviously, Mikel Arteta did not want to put it all back on Balogun's shoulders for a second consecutive week. Martinelli starts as the striker, and for most of the match, he was invisible.
Yeah, I think that's just the way we are set up at the moment. I, I don't think it would have mattered if you had Haaland up front. If you don't create him chances, he's not going to score, and that's the problem we are having right now. We don't create enough chances. We don't create enough forward movement in the team. Our team is set up, and all honesty, I said it to Sam the other day. We are set up in a whole load of nothingness. We have nothing defensively. We have nothing attacking wise. We're just there, and I think that's the most worrying part for me. Is beforehand, you could say, "Oh, Arsenal really good going forward," so they make up for their defensive issues. Last season, it was, "Oh, they're all right defensively. so they could probably win 1-0. Now we're conceding and not scoring, and that's a big problem.
Talking about the setup, talking about it. I mean, and let's acknowledge this: the spine of this club, the anticipated spine of this club, Sam, just wasn't there. I mean, look at the options that you would like to have. Maybe starting in the back and moving forward. Ramsdale in goal. Obviously, the preferred center back combo is going to be White and Gabriel. You'd like to have Partey as part of that midfield too, the deeper ones, whether it's with Xhaka or whether it's with Lokonga. You think Partey should be there. Odegaard should be forward of that. That they were all absent. Is it down to that? I mean, we're looking at a lot of those players are back in training, and some might be available for tomorrow's match, West Brom. But is it is it as simple as that? Saying put them in, and we should see an improvement in the club, or are there other bigger issues that still need to be addressed, in your opinion?
I think it's a bit of both as it stands right now, because where we're at right now is trying to get through the mess of previous regimes with all the squad that we've had to ship out, people that are brought in. It. I spoke a little bit about in an article over the weekend. It's a bit Arsenal relied on stopgaps and a short term vision.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas where we're at right now is that we should have, at that point where we brought in the David Luiz's, the Willians, Lichtsteiners, and people like that, they should have been bringing in people that were first team players to compete into the first 11, not backups, not stopgaps, people that will actively push to compete in that first 11. We haven't done that. It seems that we've had a massive policy change over the last, I'd say, 12 months, more recently now than ever. So we're looking for the team to evolve with each other. So in the future, where we are going to be in terms of squad will be a lot better. But as we stand right now, the people that are deputizing for the first team members, so like your Odegaards, Gabriels, people like that, your Partes, they're essentially the senior players aren't good enough in that rotation basis. That's the fact of the matter of where we're at right now. Our second string still isn't good enough. We've added a few good youth players and promoted a few youth players, so they'll grow. But where we're at right now in terms of seniority wise, when people are out of that team, is we're replacing good players with bad or average.
Mm. Ryan, let's go. Let's go to that. Let's start at the back. Aaron Ramsdale is in. All right, and he should be challenging pretty quickly Bernd Leno for that position. We're assuming that Gabriel's in training. White should be back soon. Um, Obviously, we've talked about this ad nauseum, but right back, right back, right back. Um, we'll talk about Hector Bellerin a little bit, but it seems like we just keep beating the same drum. They need, we could go unit by unit, but in that respect, we saw Mari had a really difficult game, and he got bossed by Lukaku in that match. But even Cedric playing better than what we saw from Chambers in the first week, it still seems deficient.
Yeah, and I think Sam hit the nail on the head with his first answer. Cedric just doesn't have the energy backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. So then, as you said, it creates an overload on one side, and they attack us on his side, because if he's forward, there's an open gap, and when you've got an open gap for 2v1 against Rob Holding, I'm afraid it's only going to go one way. But then that also makes Tierney push over a lot more to help Mari against Lukaku, and that's where both goals came from. The quick switcher play where Tierney's inside trying to help Murray with Lukaku, because he just was struggling so bad, and Reece James was just behind him both times, and that's really how they scored. And that is simply down to not having a efficient right back who can defend and can has decent recovery, because it just makes the balance of the team shifty.
All right, Sam, let's pull a question out of the chat because it's been posed. Because the one name we've kicked a lot of names around. We've talked about Max Aarons and the like, but Kieran Trippier's name has come up from Atletico Madrid, either a possible swap for Hector Bellerin or being acquired from Atletico after Bellerin goes out, wherever that may be. Knock on wood, we hope it is, and we'll talk about outgoings in a moment. But would he be sufficient? Would he in the short term? I know there's a lot of we talk about this in groups, and there's some people say, well, he's an improvement, but he's 30, 31 years old. It's a short-term fix. Given the frailties and just again, so many right backs and no solutions, wouldn't a short-term solution be better than nothing?
Yeah, I think so. With Trippier, he's very good going forward from a right back's perspective, and also he's able to spend 1v1. And if there's a chart that come into the group chat that Ryan sent in saying about fullbacks being able to be dribbled past, Bellerin's way out there on his own. Maitland Niles is there or thereabouts with um, Alexander Arnold, but we all know that he doesn't want to play it in the fullback. And frankly, Chambers just hasn't got the pace. So you put a fast player against him, he's burnt, and Cedric is essentially a backup. But if you're going to be bringing in Trippier, even for say 3 years, you're going to have somebody that's pushing for the right back slot for the England World Cup space. You're going to have a player that wants to come in and prove the shittier side of North London wrong. So to say that he deserves to be in the Premier League, and also he gives that added experience into that back line. And if you look at our back line, it severely is devoid of that at the moment. So if you bring him in, say this year, probably next year you can have a little bit more churn in the right back position, then he takes a backup slot. It would be ideal for now and future planning. And then in another couple of years, you've probably got a few of the youth coming through at right back anyway. So it's it's short term, but you can also see it from a medium and long term perspective.
So, given that he's the one name out there, gentlemen, I'll stay with you, Sam, and then we'll ask Ryan, and then we'll go on to the next topic. But is Trippier, if he's the option, it's Trippier nothing. From what everything I've heard, I think go for this move, as long as
100%.
it's not prohibitively expensive.
No, if you can use Bellerin in the deal, great, because that obviously reduces the price. But ultimately, if you have to pay the release clause for what you need, you do what you need to do. And people may complain about it, but the club can't win in that respect because people will complain if we activate the release clause and get the player. But if we don't spend in that position, people will be up in arms saying that the options that we've got now aren't adequate. So, bit of a catch-22 for the club.
Well, Ryan, let's. I want to bat that around, and I'll bring because this is something you've said many times. But looking at what Arsenal spent, all this demand for Arsenal needs to spend, Arsenal needs to invest. They've spent more than any other Prem club. It seems that if they find a player that they like and they feel that that player is going to upgrade their position, they haven't been shy about spending the money this window.
No, and it's been a welcome change, really, because you look, they wanted Odegaard, top priority, got him. Top priority, Ramsdale, got him. They've actually got all of their top targets and have paid for them. So I think if they want him, I've always maintained that I'm not fussed how much they spend as long as it improves the team. Because you can see free transfers are more expensive than actual transfers in some instances. Namely Kolasinac, Willian, these type of players, they cost you more on the pitch than they do in your bank account. So if Trippier costs 34 million but helps us reach top six, top four, then he's worth it. And that's how I look at things. And I think he improves us because I was reading some quotes from Sanya over the weekend after the game, and he said Arsenal spent 140 million on youngsters, which is true. You need those sort of senior figures in the dressing room, and I don't think we have the right senior figures in the dressing room. So I think Trippier is a good leader. He helped lead the England side during the Euros. He's gritty. He's a warrior basically. He's come through at Burnley, so he can defend. So I don't see any cons other than the price and his age. But at the end of the day, it's not my money, so I'm not really that fussed.
Well, but let's stay with your point. I want to kick it, and then I'll toss the next one to Sam. You talk about leadership. You talk about seniority. It seems that the senior players on this club are players the club is trying to move on. We're looking at Aubameyang, stories that Arsenal will entertain offers for him. We know they've been trying to move Lacazette. They moved David Luiz over the break. They let him go. They're trying to get Willian out. Xhaka, it seems, is the only older player, close to 30, that they want to keep. They're probably going to keep one of those strikers, or maybe they wind up with both of them. But as you said, those are not the leaders that you want. They've already demonstrated this over a long period of time. They're not leaders of this club. I'm staying with you, Ryan. Sorry about that.
No, yeah, absolutely right. Aubameyang has the armband, but I don't think he's the on the pitch vocal leader that Arsenal need, because you've got the youngsters that we have, the likes of Emile Smith Rowe, Bukayo Saka. They need that. They need that push. You see it with England. Harry Kane pushed Saka on the pitch, whereas you don't get that from our captain. You don't get that from our senior players. Basically, you see the leadership group that Arteta apparently has this year is Holding, Mari, Tierney, Aubameyang, and was it Lacazette? I think it might have been Lacazette. None of them, other than Tierney, hit me with leader.
Mm-hmm.
Our captain on Sunday flirted with Roma all summer, and you're expecting our youngsters to listen to him. It just baffles me. I don't think we have many vocal leaders and someone who's going to kick our players up the arse when it's going wrong. As we've seen, there was a statistic that come up on Sunday when Arsenal were losing at half time, they've not won a game.
And that speaks for itself. There's a week till the window closes, and chance to plug, we are going to have a deadline day show here in Daily Gooner. It's going to go the duration of deadline day. We had one last October. Great success. We have some wonderful guests lined up. We'll talk about them a little bit more at the end of the cast here, of the podcast. I want to say broadcast because we go out in so many different forms. But we'll get back to that in a moment. But Sam, leading up to deadline day, coming out of the Chelsea disappointment, obviously the push on Edu is clear space. Get the deadwood off the roster. We know there's still too much deadwood. Looks like there's finally some relief. Perhaps by the end of today. Lucas Torreira is in Italy, so there's one out. Unclear of his move to, he's going to Fiorentina. It's a loan. It's not clear of its obligation, or do you know if it's option or obligation? Has that been made clear yet?
Too many reflecting reports.
Okay, well, he's no longer. He's in Italy. He's in Serie A. Also looks like Willian, we all hope we're on our knees, is this far away from his move to Corinthians. It seems that Arsenal might be supplementing his salary this year, buying him out, however you want to look at it. Those are two, as you put it, missteps from different eras. Although, Torreira had a good start at Arsenal, but certainly for the last 2 years, as this club needs to turn around, these are people who are not contributing. It's got to start somewhere, and it might as well start there. It also seems Kolasinac, is he also out? Or is that still like Willian in limbo?
I think it's just a case of with Kolasinac is the club speaking to reps, speaking about bonuses and things like that as to what he's going to get paid. But I fully expect that to be resolved very, very soon, to be perfectly honest, because everybody, all parties knows that it's time for him to move on. Fenerbahce have made a play. No doubt we'll probably hear some gloating from them saying that this is the second Arsenal player that we've had and we probably won't have to pay anything, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, he just needs to go. He was on massive wages. Arsenal thought they were getting a great player. Obviously, he come off the back of being the Bundesliga team of the season left back. But boy, it's like our old recruitment. It just doesn't work out with the majority of the players that we brought in. So ultimately, if he's going, great. Torreira, great. He I felt had it in him to be problematic if he stayed this season. And Willian, well, the sooner he gets out, the better, to be perfectly honest. But his dad saying that the project doesn't live up to his ambitions. Sorry, mate, but your performances don't live up to our ambitions. So, adios.
Time for everybody to move on. But there's still two more tiers. I mean, this is a good start, assuming that these moves are completed, hopefully in the next 24 hours. But two groups, Ryan. Let's start with the veterans. Still remaining, Hector, Bellerin. We know they'd like to get him out because they're looking at somebody like Trippier. El Neni apparently is getting offers. And then there are the two strikers. It seems like as soon as he's finished this adieu and Richard Garlick need to just like take a quick nap, brew a second pot of coffee and get going, because there's still so much dead wood to clear cut off this roster.
Yeah, I think it'd be very difficult to move the two strikers, mainly because they've got massive wages and they're both on the wrong side of 30. So I think we're stuck with them for the next season. El Nini, I hope we can solve that one, because not only is keeping him going to hinder us, because then he's our backup option if we're injured or whatever. He also goes to the African Cup of Nations, which makes us even more short during January when Partey goes. So we need a solution with him. His contract runs out next summer. Personally, I would sell for whatever I'm being offered and just get someone else in. Bellerin, another one. No one has offered a sufficient amount. No one wants to buy him, I guess. But I suppose it's understandable when you look at his injury problems and no one really wants to take the risk on paying outright for him. I'll just, again, loan him, deal with it next summer, get what we need now. Who's the other one? Eddie. Eddie is getting a lot of interest, but no one wants to pay what Arsenal want. Arsenal want 20. They want to pay 10.
Is this club's lowballing Arsenal because he's injured right now and he hasn't been available for transfer for the last few weeks?
No, it's because Eddie's very average and he's only got a year left on his contract.
Okay, fair enough. Sam, and he just brought one name from the second group, is the English youngsters, Eddie, Reece Nelson, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, another group they've got to go. And frankly, I'm surprised that those three have not drawn more interest from across the Prem.
Yeah, quite frankly, it's a similar situation to our senior pros. These are players that have failed to live up to expectations, so they're on big wages considering what lower and mid tier clubs want to pay for them. Reece, we could loan him and lose him potentially for free next year. Ainsley, he needs to make a decision on his career, because if he constantly keeps flopping, he either needs to commit to the right back and be Arsenal's right back, or just go to somewhere like Burnley and just sit in that midfield and not do or amount to anything during his career. So essentially it's just a balancing act of trying to eke any money out of clubs, but not setting a precedent of being lowballed by other clubs. It's a very fine balance. Can Edu do it? I'm not too sure.
Well, hopefully the next 24, 48 hours will tell us more about that. But that gets us back to the point. Three strikers that we'd like to see move on, or at least maybe one of them, whether it's Eddie, Lacazette, Aubameyang. I'll ask this to both of you, but Ryan, how confident are you? We talked earlier, Arsenal needs a right back. They need a striker too. Um, 2 weeks ago, we were very bullish on them filling both of those positions. So what's your thoughts now, 1 week out from the window?
Uh, Obviously, confidence is diminishing ever so slightly. I think it's just tough to move the two big names, mainly because at this stage in the window, is anyone really going to commit to a 30-year-old on £190,000 a week? Probably not. So again, as well with Lacazette, why move to a team now? Take lesser wages when you can sign a pre-contract in January and sign for a massive signing-on fee next summer on a free transfer. So again, I personally, I've said to Sam, I think I've said to yourself as well, I don't personally think we are crying for a new striker. I think we're crying for a different option to Aubameyang. Because once Aubameyang is Aubameyang again, which by all rumours he's been performing in training, I don't think we need another number 9. I think we need another option. So when the going gets tough, we can just fling it into the box and hope someone gets on the end of it.
Okay, Sam, I'm going to pull a question out of the chat because it's been brought up, and because we've talked about this. Arsenal does need a different, as Ryan said, a different style of striker, one who can complement Aubameyang. We've seen it. We've talked for as long as Tierney's been in the lineup. We've talked about the fact that how many of his good crosses go begging because there's nobody in the box who can finish them off with his head. How they have nobody to hold up play. I have to assume that at some point the club will just say, okay, at this point we'll take the 10 for Eddie. It seems it's rumors Crystal Palace have offered 10 million to Arsenal for Eddie Nketiah. Apparently that offer was turned down. I have to think there's got to be some date at which if it doesn't come, maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's Thursday, Arsenal realizes if we don't just bite the bullet with this kid, we're not going to get a new striker. And assuming he's out, who would you look to? And it seems pretty clear the club will spend money on a striker. And if Adu can get this first wave of expensive players out, maybe move Hector on, who do you look for that would be that taller, more physical, complementary player?
Well, by the sounds of things, Raf, you're leading me into the guy that I wrote on yesterday. So, about Weghorst from Wolfsburg. The geezer's an absolute animal in terms of size. He's 6'5". He's got very good link up play. He's very good at shielding the ball. He'll actually press from the front as well. And for a big man, you'd think that he would just be in and around on the back line on the last man, but he's not. He's one that will cause chaos in between the lines as well because he'll come off the defense, receive the ball, and try and play the ball through to the wingers or inside forward. So he's a bit of an all-round striker. And if we're gonna have Aubameyang back being Aubameyang, he would be a perfect foil for that. And even if Aubameyang was to move to the left-hand side and have a cross through the middle and have Aubameyang coming off the left, you can see them two linking up quite nicely as well. So for me, if you're going by reports, Wolfsburg, because they've just brought back the German striker from Benfica. So if you're looking at the price now, you're looking between 13 and 17 million. I know it's for a 29-year-old, but again, you're adding experience into the front line and into the squad. So for that price, you can probably get a striker that will score you 10, 12 goals from the bench and have him for the next 3 years. So overall, the wages won't be high. Overall, it'll be a good deal, in my opinion.
He's been linked with Arsenal as well in the past, has he not?
Yep. We was linked to him back in. Well, we brought news that we was looking at him back in April, and also the link started to come out about May, June time. So there was a bit of chatter early July. So it'll be interesting to see if Arsenal come back full circle on this rumored link.
All right, Ryan, getting some questions in the chat about some more expensive, younger, certainly sexier, but far more expensive options. Isak from Sociedad, who kind of flashed at the Euros, is being mooted. should Arsenal look in his direction? Apparently, they've been scouting him, but that was in the summer.
Absolutely. The kid is what, 6'4"?
Yeah.
He's got. I don't want to put too much pressure on his shoulders, but he's got very. He's very much like Thierry Henry in the sense where he's tall, fast, can run with the ball, can hold it up, bring others into play, and he's still very raw. Let me just put that there as well. He's very much a 21-year-old type striker. You can still see a little bit. Very clinical. He scored 21 goals last season for Sociedad. So he's just signed a new 5-year contract, I think, and his release clause went from 59 million to 75. But if you're saying that we need a big striker, a big price striker, and you're talking about the Calvert-Lewins, the Weghorst, well, I wouldn't even put him in that echelon either, really. But those big money signings, I don't think you could look further than Isaac. He's got the link with Odegaard already. He's only 21. He's going to get better. He fits in with the age profiles. So if you're spending big on a striker, I think he should be the one we seriously consider.
All right, Sam, I'm going to bring you back to one. I guess the last big name of the trio. You mentioned Weghorst. As you said, maybe the budget option, if the club wants to throw big money around, he sucks. One, Dominic Calvert-Lewin comes up again and again. I'm going to let you kind of touch on him as a possibility if Arsenal go that route.
Yeah, we all know how Dominic Calvert-Lewin's taken off over in the past year, 2 years. So he's been leading up to be doing big things. So it all, for me, I've said this to Ryan, it depends whether last season was a purple patch. It's interesting to see how he'll get on this year. For me personally, I wouldn't sign him this year. I'd be looking at him next to see if it's a continued run. But it's one of them things. Do you take a chance on him, get him adapted in? He's able to hold up the play. Sometimes his first touch does let him down, but big, powerful striker with the way that we're playing, going down the wings. I really think that he will adapt to that as well. And as we've seen, some of his leaping abilities to get on the end of crosses is phenomenal, and his finishing is pretty tidy. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But for me, I would probably park him till next year. But if we're in desperate need this window, certainly an option.
Okay, before we move on to the next possible target in the window, given those names, who do you think is like? Who would you like, and who do you think is likely? Stay with you, Sam. You go first.
People coming in.
Yeah, with striker. Let's stay with striker. Just stay with that position because we've been talking about it. Who would you like? No budget, no money is no object, and who is likely in your opinion? And they could be the same player.
If it's no budget, Isaac. If it's budget, then probably Weghorst. Just for getting added experience in as well. But if we losing both Aubameyang and that other bum Lacazette, then I'd be looking at Weghorst and Calvert-Lewin.
Okay, Ryan, same question to you. Who you like and who's likely, and they can be the same player or players. I mean,
if money's not an object, I'm going for Isaac. And likely, I think someone that we've not talked about, Edouard from Celtic.
We used to talk about him a lot. He's very quiet.
He's only got 10 months left on his contract. He could be had for very, very cheap.
Okay. All right. So, Sam, that brings us to the next position. I mean, what we're saying, given the time, given the players that need to be cleared out, clearly priority, right back, possibly striker. But you gentlemen raised a very troubling point earlier in the program, which is Arsenal could face a real crisis when the African Cup of Nations comes. If they keep El Neni, because he'll be gone, Partey will probably be gone. Does this club need another midfielder and let's extend this. Maybe you would take this last part first. Xhaka and Lukonga look a little out of sync. Does Odegaard's not there? Does Arsenal have the players in house to build that midfield cohesion and unit? Is it just a matter of Partey coming back? And once Odegaard and Partey are ready, how do they line up?
Well, if on the drive home today, I was listening to the radio, and a good point was actually made. You look at the other strong Premiership teams in the top six; they've got partnerships in that midfield. We haven't got strong partnerships. We've got Partey, who's very strong. We've got Xhaka on his day can do bits and pieces. We've got Lukonga coming in as a 21-year-old, so hopefully him and Partey will make that strong partnership in the middle. And then you've got El Neni that needs to go. So essentially, where we're at right now, and we see it in games that have got strong midfields, we lose the midfield battle every single time, and we get overrun in that midfield. So for me, we do need another midfielder in. We need probably somebody like a Basuma, but again, it's the African Cup of Nations that's going to cause issues. But if it's not him, I'd be looking very much at Ruben Neves because I think that guy is ready to really kick on away from Wolves.
Ryan, I'm going to throw another name out there. Well, first off, do you agree that this team could benefit should they move El Neni and look for another one? I'm going to bring his name up because he's all over the French press that Camavinga may be available for a very low price or much lower than we expected. I don't know what his demands are, what his expectations are, but it seems that that's another young, I think he's still 19 years old, prime target who could be had for certainly much, much, much less. We talked about Odegaard last week. What a bargain he could turn out to be. Adding another player probably for even less than Odegaard seems possible. I'm amazed. I haven't heard Arsenal connected with him more in the last few days.
Yeah, I think what Arsenal need in the centre of the midfield is experience. I think we need someone who's going to win the midfield battle because I don't think Partey can do it on his own. You saw on Saturday, Jorginho and Kovacic just absolutely run rings around our midfield. And then Kante came on and did it as well. I think that's our problem. We don't have the experience to know how the nous of winning games. Like, you look at all the best teams under Wenger. You had your Vieiras, your Gilbertos, and then if they weren't playing, you had your Ray Parlour, you had your Edu, who weren't the best players, but they knew how to win games. If Partey and Xhaka aren't playing, do you trust El Neni and Lukonga to win you a game? I mean,
no.
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 And if
I wish I could say yes,
and
but
Partey,
no.
And if it is Lukonga and Partey who's the starting midfield partnership, do you trust Xhaka and El Neni to win you a game? And we've seen that story before. So I fully agree with Sam. If it's not Basuma, it has to be Neves. The Premier League experience, the selection of pass, the selection of long passes, short passes, the experience in the league, the calmness on the ball is priceless.
So that brings us it brings us back to a very tired topic, which is, and we know we've got all these names lined up. I'm sure the club has all these names lined up. It's now the clock is ticking. This is when moves start. Usually the log jams break. It looks like Arsenal could get three troublesome, past it, at least as far as this club is concerned, names out the door. Sam, just how many more can they do in the next 2, 3, 4 days?
Well, it purely depends on how quickly they get the initial three out. Once they're out, then we can concentrate on the next three and so forth. But I think if we're looking at it logically, I'll probably think 5 out. I think one of them's probably gonna linger around, namely being Lacazette.
How many of the youngsters do you anticipate leaving in the next week? Of Ainsley, Nelson, Niles. All
All
three.
of them. Yeah.
Sam? I'm Ryan, sorry. Same. Let's start with the English trio.
Yeah, I think they'll all leave. I think Ainsley will probably go anywhere that's offering him midfield position, and I think Eddie and Reece will probably end up at Palace under Vieira.
Okay, and then of the seniors, the ones that we haven't mentioned yet, Hector, El Neni. It'd be great to see both of those go. I assume those are the next two of this first three are gone.
I think we'll probably see El Neni and Lacazette stay. I think Bellerin would be the only one that goes out of them. Not.
But that opens the door then for right back. Okay, final question. But we ask it every week. Right back, striker, midfielder. How many can this club clear room for, and how many can this club bring in? Optimistic. Again, who do you like? What would you like to see? What do you think is going to happen? Ryan, start with you.
I'm not as confident as I was before. I think it probably just be a right back because I don't think we'll be able to shift. As I said, the two up front and El Neni ultimately is cheap option, doesn't complain, cheap wages. So again, don't think he'll be moved. So I think just the right back.
Okay, Sam, same question. You get the final word this week.
If I had confidence in a competent technical director, then I'd be saying probably get striker, midfielder, right back, but I'm going with Ryan, so probably just right back.
Right back.
And keeping a couple of bums on the fucking wage bill.
All right, so let's try to find something a little more optimistic. Arsenal does play a cup match tomorrow. They play West Brom. We're going to see some kids. Sam, who do you hope to see? Or no, you're shaking your head, Ryan. What did I miss?
We're not going to see any kids.
We're not going to see any
kids.
kids.
It's going to be a very strong lineup.
You think that this is a confidence building? The club needs it that badly.
Yeah.
Can't afford to take any more hammerings.
Fair enough. Who's in it? Give me a prediction. It's kind of hard because cup matches are you can pull a result out of the air.
You're probably going to be looking at Ramsdale, Chambers, Holding, Mari, Tavares, Xhaka, Lokonga, Pepe, Smith Rowe, Saka.
So Odegaard going to play tomorrow?
Yeah.
Will he be on the bench at least?
Sorry, I think Odegaard will come in as 10, Smith Rowe on the left, and Aubameyang up front.
Okay. Prediction? Can they pull it? Can they get a result? Can they score a goal?
I bloody hope so, but I think given the way that West Brom have started off their league campaign compared to where we're at right now, they're on an all-time high, and I'd hate to say it, but I think we're gonna find it very hard at a Hawthorn side. Probably, I'd like to say grind out a 2-1 win.
My 11 would be Ramsdale, Cedric, Holding, Mari, Tavares, El Neni, Xhaka, Nelson, Odegaard, Martinelli, Aubameyang, and I think it's going to go to penalties. Raf, your sound's gone.
Oh shoot! Let me try it again.
There you go.
All right. Tell them who's coming to the pod next week, to the special extended deadline day pod.
Who have we got confirmed so far?
Can't even remember. Here we go. James Bench from CBS.
You've got Art again from The Athletic, and potentially, is it Kaya from Football London?
No,
It's going to be on a feature.
Kaya's going to come to the podcast after deadline.
Okay, well, still some big names who will probably have some very interesting insight into the first 3 matches and anything that goes on deadline day. So, all right, we want to thank, again, everybody who's followed us week by week and certainly today here on the pod. We're running a bit long, but again, hopeful for some better news from Arsenal Football Club off the pitch and on it, certainly tomorrow. For Sam, for Ryan, I'm Raphael. We bid you a good night.